Everyone, JP Glancy, and this is the Module 5 discussion. For the discussion, I chose the questions focused on inquiry based learning and cooperative learning. So I'll go ahead and start with inquiry based. Uh, the first question was, what is inquiry based learning and teaching? So it is an active, student centered approach to education that has students follow the path of inquiry. That is to say, that the students take the reins, they develop and pursue their own questions, experiments, and other lines of inquiry rather than simply, sitting there and passively receiving content from me. It assumes, like the concept to classroom article proposes, quote, that the attributes experts use to generate knowledge are very similar to the attributes essential for the effective transmission of knowledge within the learner's environment, the essentials of effective inquiry learning. For students, it looks like a focus on developing and answering questions through research, often collaborative, while reflecting on what they learned and how they learned it. And for teachers, it looks like facilitating student lines of inquiry through the use of essential questions that are open-ended and will cause the students to generate more questions, and then student-led activities and hands-on assignments. B says, what does the term habits of mind mean, and how is it connected to inquiry-based learning? So in the concept of classroom article, they talk about habits of mind as referring to one of, quote, the attributes necessary for both generating and effectively transmitting the fund of knowledge. It said that the article said that for educators, inquiry implies emphasis on the development of inquiry skills and the nurturing of inquiring attitudes or habits of mind that will enable individuals to continue the quest for knowledge throughout life. So this idea that developing these inquiring habits, this sort of natural curiosity, but also pursuing a broader question to develop your own more specific ones and then answer them. Those are the kinds of habits of mind, those inquiry-based habits of mind that we are seeking to develop in our students through this particular model of teaching. So rather than being focused on the students learning like all of the content, which is impossible because they talk about how, like information on a particular content area is, constantly changing and that kind of thing. We're instead of focusing on them, learning all of something, we're instead focusing on nurturing those skills, those habits of mind that will allow them to continue learning all their lives through the process of inquiry. How can I implement inquiry-based learning in my classroom? I really like this question. I loved the Beth Holland Edutopia article because it talked a lot about like driving questions, essential questions. I love the fourth grade example that they gave, where the teacher had the scaffolding prepared, but the question wasn't really, excuse me, the question wasn't really open enough for them to do, to really develop their own lines of inquiry. So using her fourth grade driving question as a model, in my own classroom, a high school classroom, I could ask them a question like, why do so many people disagree about who is truly responsible for Macbeth's downfall? Because we read Macbeth in my class. So this would require the students to, quote, drive their research around the world, like it says in the Edutopia. But it leaves a lot of things open, that gives students the opportunity to question things like, who disagrees, about what, right? Based on what interpretations of the text. And, maybe they might even question the concept of responsibility, right? The nature of responsibility itself. The point is, as an essential question, it requires them to actively develop their own questions and lines of inquiry in pursuit of some kind of an overarching answer. So, according to Grant Wiggins and Jay McTeague, essential questions do not lead to a single answer, but instead serve as a catalyst for discussion, require higher order thinking skills such as inference and evaluation, and spark more questions that lead to even more inquiry. So I think, for me, especially in an English class, implementing more inquiry-based learning in my classroom would probably, be providing students with implementing more of this type of question, these types of driving questions, and then providing students with scaffoldings, which let them effectively organize their knowledge. I think that would be the move for me. Then I went on to cooperative learning. What is cooperative learning? It's an approach to instruction that focuses on students working in small groups in pursuit of a teacher-set learning goal. In cooperative learning, especially in the Kagan model, the teacher takes a back seat and acts as a facilitator, a helper, rather than driving the instruction. The teacher creates opportunities for the students to help each other learn. They create well-defined roles within the groups, and they try to generate group work that's going to make each student responsible for their own learning, but also be, at least in part, collaboratively responsible for the learning, the attaining of the learning goal for the group, right? For the group learning as well. Some of the benefits to teaching using a cooperative learning strategy. So according to that video, it talked about a whole bunch of different ones, right? It talks about deepening understanding. There was the English student who was talking about, deepening their understanding through like round table discussions. They talk a lot about the cultivation of resilience, right? So it empowers and enables students in their interactions with each other, and helps them to do things like, interact with each other critically in a positive way. It goes right back to habits of mind, right? It develops, they talked about in the video how it develops habits of mind for scholarship, right? Learning how to look to your neighbor as a resource, right? Testing your own theories on other people, the proverbial bouncing things off the wall. I know it also talked about, it helps students feel more engaged, right? They're more engaged with their learning. They're more engaged. They're part of the conversation that is their learning. And it really, it facilitates the exchange of ideas. The different structures or types of cooperative learning. That one stumped me a little bit because I wasn't sure if you were referring to the David W. Johnson and Roger T. Johnson article, which was talking about the formal and the informal, right? The formal being the sort of longer term students working together for, maybe up to several weeks to achieve some kind of shared learning goal, or the informal, which is just shorter term, right? The temporary groups that might, last from a few minutes to one class period. So those were two types from that article, but I didn't know if you were talking about maybe some of the Kagan structures, like how it would look in the classroom. And off the top of my head, I remember, and I used the jigsaw structure, right, where you sort of divide students up and into these learning areas or topics or parts of the topic, and then like each student goes off and does their research and becomes an expert on their particular area, and then they all come back and teach it to the group. And then also kind of related to that, and this is one that I've done in a bunch of classes as well, not just like I have used it as a teacher, but also I have done it as a student, is the think, pair, share. I think is probably the most well known, as like an informal, right? Where they think about whatever the question is individually, and then they talk it with a partner, partner up maybe once, twice, or three times, and then, sort of write down ideas that they may have, new ideas or opinions that they may have gotten from other people. And then they get back together and share everything, right, with the group as a whole. So those are some different types of collaborative or cooperative learning that I'm aware of. All right, thanks, guys. I'll see you next week.